Welcome back to the Enlightened Misfits podcast. I am your host, Lauren, and in today's episode, I have Victoria. She is the intuitive listener. She is an elemental healer and mentor. I am super excited for today's conversation. Welcome, Victoria.
Thank you so much for having me here. It's a delight to be here.
Of course. So let's start talking about the dragon energy. And how can you start by explaining what the dragon energy is and maybe how you can apply it to life or even business?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So, dragon energy is working with dragons in the astral realms. You are literally just in the same way that you would tap into angelic energy, fae energy, mermaid energy. You can tap into dragon energy in the exact same way. For some people, this is easily done by going into a guided meditation, a channeled meditation, working with oracle cards. The way in is unique and different for every single person. But when we start working with the dragons, we notice changes happening very quickly in our lives. If you are someone that suffers from anxiety, by calling on Black Dragon, it can snap you out of those panic attacks, anxiety attack mode as they're happening. You're recovering from a major operation and you're needing to honor, speed up, have a quick recovery time, but honor where your energy is at day by day, making sure you don't push yourself too much, too fast. Again, Black Dragon is an amazing dragon to work with for these energies. But we also have dragons that are connected into the archangel realms. One that always jumps to mind right away for me is dark blue dragons. These dragons are all about protection. Now, on a physical level for us, on that protection scale, they will move us away from toxic relationships. A relationship that does not serve us, they're going to move us out of the path. A business situation that does not serve us. Like we have a constant war going on in an office. There is too much he said, she said. We can't get any work done. Calling in blue dragons in that energy setting is going to burn away these lower, more competitive in a negative way, not in a good way, because you can get good competitive energy as well, but in a negative way, there's going to move you away from that job, from that situation, from maybe a corporate world into a much more spiritual based world, if that is what more aligned to your life's journey. You can also find dragons that are mystical, deeply mystical, and love working with healers. So if you are someone that's working in the healing realm, I always think people instantly go to Fire Dragon. There's like, oh, I'm just going to call in Fire Dragon and remove this person's hooks and cords and just do all this and burn it all up. When you literally hear other healers speak about dragon healing energy, they're like, I'm just going to call in the dragons to burn all that away. I was like, you're doing them such a huge disservice because it's in their breath, it's in their wingspan, it's in their motion, it's on the journeys that they take you through the timelines. It's not just by, okay, I'll come and breathe the fire on the soul contracts. I will come and break this all up for you. It's just such a tiny aspect of the whole bigger picture of how dragon energy can work with you. So I always say to people, I have not found something that the dragons cannot help you with. And that's quite a big claim, but it's a very honest one.
Yeah.
Because if it's the kids having nightmares, call in Rose Pink Dragon. She's going to settle them down. Even if your kids are very young, you can say to them, okay, sweetheart, there's a pink dragon at the end of the bed here. They're going to watch over you. And if something enters the room that you don't like or you have a bad dream and wake up, just call on them and they'll help you back to sleep or come get mom. You can do that. And that is so reassuring for kids that are constantly having nightmare situations. And that can be to any age. You know, you can keep going with little practices like that. Then you have other dragons, as I said, can help you with the work situations, can help you with health situations, can help your body recharge and release trauma that's been hidden in your DNA, that's been hidden in your through the generations, through the ancestral lineage. But what the dragons have shown me as well over the last several years is we don't just have the ancestral human lineage we need to release from. We also have the galactic, the starseed, the elemental lineages, those past lives to access, work with, and release hidden fears and energies and limiting beliefs.
I love that. I was gonna say when you had scheduled and I like looked into all your
Mm,
information, I was like, actually I have to say I'm super excited for every conversation, with all of my guests, but there's just something near and dear to my heart with mermaid energy and dragon energy because, and especially when you said, I really wish, you know, when I was a child, my mom was, she didn't, she wasn't,
mhm.
intuitive like all,
Yeah,
women are, but it was like, I really wish that times when I would be scared or I would not feel safe, I really wish I had that tool to tell. Now I'm going to go tell my daughter because she does have nightmares and I normally for the most part, I try to do some like healing on, the
mm,
like in the astral realm, but I never really thought to ask for the dragon's help to like help her watch, or she can just say it herself too.
yeah,
So I love that you said that because she's been having some nightmares and some bad dreams that she's been waking up in the middle of the night because whatever she's thinking about
yeah,
before she goes to bed or whatever her whole day,
yeah.
happened
And
or
sometimes if our kids are naturally intuitive themselves and naturally
yeah,
spiritual,
yeah.
and before they even bring that to our attention, often as a mother, you know it before they bring it to
Oh yeah.
your
Yeah.
attention. But
Yeah.
literally, once they're in that comfortable state, and they do, they're like often astral journeying in their dreams and they're meeting, going to places and meeting different races, and they don't know it and understand it. So this is
Yeah.
why a lot of kids will have nightmares. So
Yeah.
getting them in that state, one of the other dragons I encourage my own daughter to work with is royal blue dragons, because they are the protectors. So they are
Okay.
instantly going as a group, because these guys are like the bodyguards of the dragonwood. You literally, whenever you work with this clan, and it is like a complete clan you're working with, it's not just one, it is a group of five. There's one in front of you, two at the side, and two at the back. So I always say to her, if you are journeying somewhere and you have an unpleasant dream and you don't feel safe, call in the royal blue dragons. They're going to come and they're going to help. Now, she often steps into the unicorn realms when she's asleep. I said, oh, but mummy, what if they? I said, don't worry. The dragons are an ally of the unicorns. The unicorns aren't going to care. If you call in the dragons, the unicorns aren't going to get spooked. They're literally
Yeah.
not going to care. And she's
Yeah.
like, okay. So this went on several weeks now. I'm going back a couple of years now. And I remember her coming. She said, Mummy, I did that and it worked. And the unicorns were completely fine. I was like, see, I told you.
Yeah. I didn't even think that. Oh, okay. So I work a lot with the mermaid energy too. So, and I do know that the mermaid energy, like they also don't care about. I didn't even think to about the unicorn energy. That's
Yeah,
interesting. My daughter is obsessed with unicorns, so I'm curious. I should ask her different things because I'm curious to see if that's maybe what she plays a lot with in her dreams too. Because
yeah,
she's a huge avid dreamer. She just tells me these random stories, and I'm like, I'm trying to connect what you're even saying. Like what, and because
yeah,
she's 4.5, so she's still in that very theta
yeah.
state constantly anyway. And she
Mhm.
just tells me these stories, and I'm like, where did you get that from?
Yes, it's
What
the
are
little
you
bits
talking
of
about?
information that they come away with, isn't it?
Yeah.
That they just get so excited about, and then they tell
Yeah.
you. And I used to be hearing all these elaborate stories about the trees, feeding them from apple trees and healing this one
Yeah.
and working with this one. I was like, girl, you're just going to go bed to go to sleep. You're often all these astral journeys and teachings and learnings.
Yes. Yeah, that's actually how. So my daughter actually last week had said to me, Mommy, there was a unicorn, and I was like, oh, okay. Like she's like, yeah, I seen it, and I was like, oh, okay. What did it look like? And I was like trying to get her to explain
Yeah,
it, and she was like, I give it my candy, and I'll go get it right now. And I was like, oh, okay. So she like got her, stuffed animal unicorn, and she
yeah.
was like, and I'm gonna give it candy, and the unicorn said I can have candy, and I was like, uh, well, I'm like, you mean you want candy? No, no, no. The
Yeah.
unicorns aren't telling you you can have candy. So it's funny how she's trying to put that into like, I'm going to get what I want in
Yes,
physically.
exactly. They all do that to a certain level.
Yeah.
So and
I'm
so
like,
told me, Mummy, muscle
yeah,
test. The best one in this house is Mummy, muscle test for this. See if I'm telling you the truth. I'm like, sweetheart, I know you're telling me a lie because you're giggling like intensively, and this is just your little tell. But I was like, okay. And then, just, oh, your muscle testing's broken. I went, no, it's not. You're just not happy it's calling yet.
yes, I do that. I do that muscle testing a lot too. Because right, like our egos can kind of play in play with that. And I usually say, like, she's 4.5, she's a little baby ego. I mean, she does have
Mhm.
her higher self is very conscious, I feel like,
Yes.
compared to other kids. I can tell that,
Yeah.
she's very compassionate, loving, and caring, all that stuff. But then that ego comes out when it's like, I'm not getting what I want. My mom is not listening to me. I'm like, oh, her ego is like, and she is also an Aries rising. So she is very like, she doesn't, her son is a Capricorn, but then she's
Yeah.
Sagittarius moon. So she has this full chart of like fire, not very stable air. Just like she's literally like a dragon, pretty much, probably.
Mhm.
She like breathes that like, that fire out of her mouth sometimes when she gets angry.
I bet you anything she's super creative. Like, I bet
Yes.
very artsy, very
Yes.
creative energy,
Yes.
constantly on the go. Because
Oh
if
God.
we look at
Yes.
fire and air dragons, because we have this beautiful hybrid family of dragons that are quite often just completely unexplored. And one of the main things with them is this expansion of energy. They are very good at communicating their needs, but they have
Oh
the
yeah.
hottest temper, the quickest
Yeah.
passion, and they will try
Yes.
and work any situation to their advantage. And that's not a
Yes.
bad thing, but it is just this, let's get going. I need to work and I need to get this out of my system now kind of thing.
Yeah. I always say to her, she's going to be a CEO of a business,
Yeah.
or she's going to have her own business, because she's very, when it comes to that stuff, she's very, very, and I always say this to my boyfriend, Joey. I say, I think she's more intuitive than I am. And like, cause I'll say stuff and she's like, no, mommy, not, no. And I'm like, how do you know that I'm not telling you the truth? Like, it's like a fib
Yes.
of like, we got to go do here. We're not going to do it here right now,
But
mom, right now. I'm like,
this
no, not right now.
generation,
Yeah.
this generation and the last few generations of kids, because they're growing up in spiritually open homes, they're growing
Mm,
up in the homes of the healers, the natural intuitives, the witches, the shamans.
yeah.
They're seeing everyday spiritual practices. They're picking
Yep.
up on mindfulness techniques at a much younger age. So they instantly become what I call the little human lie detector. You cannot get anything past these kids. Even if it's for their highest good, you cannot get anything
No.
past these kids. It's not you like you're trying to be mean or manipulative or anything.
Oh,
You're just
no.
maybe not trying to
Uh-uh.
say that you feel sick so that you don't want to spoil a day out for them or something. And you
Right.
can't. They just see through
No.
it all.
I know. I always, I act, and it's probably because me, and people always say to me, oh, she's like your little, mini me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, she is. And it's like, I know that sometimes my inner child also gets angry and also gets like, get away from me. I don't want to be touched. I don't, you're annoying me,
Yes.
all that stuff. And she like, is like, and I always say that she's like probably my biggest teacher, because I see what also see my own shadows, maybe my own wounding in her, or like
Yeah.
she shows me back of like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be touched, and I feel like with society, it's like, the whole, like, it's very generational. It's like, oh, give me a hug. Oh, give me a kiss. I'm your mom or your dad or your grandparents. And it's just
Yeah.
like, she doesn't want to be touched. Don't touch her. Like, she's only 4.5, but she's
Mhm.
allowed to tell you what she wants and what she doesn't want.
Yeah, she's
Like,
allowed
I
to
don't
set
really,
her own boundaries. And I think
yes. And we're
society
working on
still,
boundaries. Yeah.
yeah, and it's like
Yeah.
society still wants us to conform to an old way of being that doesn't really exist anymore. Everyone's
Yeah.
learned more about body boundaries, consent, things like
100%.
that. And people are worried that you can teach it to a child too young, but you will often find that the child has been trying to set certain boundaries since they were little, and
Yes.
the adults have just not listened. You know,
Yes.
my daughter is very happy to greet people with a hug, but when it comes to going away, she doesn't always want to kiss people. She doesn't always want to give that hug goodbye. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
bye, see you, had a great time, heading for the car. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm out of here.
My daughter, that I think I forget who I was talking to. I might have been talking to a friend or a family member, but she was having difficulties with her son, and I said that, maybe you should set boundaries with him. And her response was, he's too young. I was like, I'm telling you, he's
Yeah,
very intuitive. I'm very intuitive, and I know he's very intuitive. I mean, gosh, he's a Pisces. Like, I know he's very, very intuitive. He literally has Sagittarius moon and a rising in Aries. So he's like opposite of my daughter's
yeah.
chart, but she's just Capricorn, he's Pisces.
Mhm.
And they literally butt heads like brother and sister. So it's like that's, but there is age consciousness difference, awareness and stuff too. And I just said, no, you know, I think he needs boundaries because for one, he's draining the ever living shit out of you. And, there's emotional like dysregulation and he just wants to feel like,
Mm.
he's an emotional being. Like he's a Pisces, like I
Yeah.
am Pisces moon and rising. All I do, I feel like is cry, cry,
It's
so
the
it's like,
way, sorry, it's the
what do you
way
say?
that our children react to us. If they are feeling
Yeah,
sick and sad and blue, it's not
yeah,
always they automatically become more demanding. But what people
yeah,
don't realize, and I have to admit, this is a blind spot for me, and I usually need one of my other healer charms to call me out on this,
yeah,
is literally go look at your hooks and cords between you and your own child. Because if you are feeling drained and they are sick and they're needing mum, dad all the time, constant, and they're
yeah,
testing you to your limits. Myself and my dog, we get on like a house on fire 98% of the time, but there is that 2% of the time. And usually when we're in this bicker, raging mode at each other, which is so rare, but we're
yeah,
just having one of those days that we wind each other up completely up the wall. I have to
yeah,
look at the hooks and cords. And as soon as I go with the dragons, like, okay, show me the hooks and cords between me and my daughter today. And I will see a chockload of them. And I was like, okay,
yeah,
let's burn away all the grays, the blacks, the heavy, and remove all anchors, sharps, seals. And then let's keep the golden cords because golden cords are always divine love cords. So you don't really want to remove them. They don't have a
yeah,
purpose to
yeah,
be removed because they're not doing anything harmful to your body. But removing all the rest and then getting Emerald Green Dragon to come in and seal those wounds so the cords can't reattach in the same place for the exact same reason is always
right.
a little added bonus. But literally, that is something I think a lot of parents would do so well is to check the hooks and cords between them and the child, especially if a child is testing the boundaries and is just constantly, the mood swings are happening a lot more often than they should do. And sugar's
Yeah.
nowhere involved in this scenario. It's not coming down off the crack.
Yes. I was going to say, I love that you say that too, because in a different perspective of the way that I look at it is if I'm getting triggered, if I'm like, you're getting annoying, you're so annoying. If I'm thinking this, like, why are you so annoying today? Why are you so emotional?
Yeah.
Like, I'm never going to speak that to her. I know that she might feel that,
Mhm.
like feel that energy that I'm putting
Yeah.
out. But I always say like, okay, so like, what is she trying to teach me here? Or like, what is she trying to tell me without having that awareness and consciousness level to tell me what she needs to tell me? And it's more about maybe I'm like discarding my own emotions or I'm dismissing them, or maybe I haven't been around for her, maybe she needs comfort, you know and I just kind of learned about this attachment style, this disorganized attachment style. So it's like I have this anxious attachment style with like this avoidant attachment style, and together it's like, and I because I always thought that I had some the anxious attachment style. But now I'm learning that like I feel myself avoiding stuff. So it's like it comes out a lot with my daughter, and I've been healing this, and I realize like I love her, I want her around, but there's like just get away from me. It's like you're overstimulating me. Like oh my goodness, like it's like this constant battle within myself that I
Yeah.
have spoke this to another healer, and she does inner child coaching, and she's like, Lauren, you're normal. A lot of moms have this. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, great. I'm glad that I don't want to be normal, but it's like it's normal to feel this way because it's like happening a lot lately. And she's, so I was like, okay, well, I know as a healer, I need to go back into my inner child and figure out where this is coming from a child. So it's I told you this before we were recording that I feel like I was conscious since I came out of my
Yeah.
mom. Like that's pretty much how it I feel. And there was a vivid memory that I had to go back onto when I was one in this lifetime. And the feeling that I had when I was one, and not feeling wanted and all the things, like had to go back through all of that stuff. And then I realized that wisdom from when I was one, my 1-year-old self,
Mhm.
or my baby self, or whatever time it was in the vision. I don't think
Yeah.
it matters for that, but it was just that. And what was that supposed to be showing me, and like kind of healing through that, and I could kind of pass that on to my daughter, so I'm not, subconsciously putting on, generational trauma to my daughter,
Yeah, and
so
that's something
it's
I'm
just
always
interesting.
super
Yeah,
aware of as well. It's when I'm working with the dragons, I always say we're working along that 7-year timeline. We're working the 7 years backwards and the 7 years forwards.
yeah,
But especially if we're releasing generational trauma from our
yeah,
cells and from our DNA, it
yeah,
just ends out so many karmic cycles. And I think this is the lovely thing. Like I said, the children that are growing up now are growing up in much more spiritually aware, mindful
yeah,
homes. It's a
yeah,
different approach in parenting styles that our parents took with us. We are coming
yeah,
from a place of not hiding anything, but also not burdening the children with adult problems. Either we're
right,
getting that balance absolutely right,
yeah,
and
yeah,
that is so crucial. I mean, you were saying that we do as mothers, we get overstimulated by our kids. For me as a clairaudient, sound
yeah,
is the worst offender for me. And my
yeah,
dishwasher can be on, my daughter can be talking to me, and then she's got the TV on, and I was like, I often say to her, okay, one thing at a time. I can't possibly do all this. Stay
yeah,
dialed into spirit. Please, you want to have the conversation with me? Please pause the TV and then come back and let's have this conversation. But I
yeah,
am the world's worst for sounds. It's one of the reasons in recent years I've become so bad in crowds. As my gifts grow and get stronger and sharpen, and you have all these energetic upgrades, you become more sensitive to certain things. But yeah, it's something we
yes.
all do. It's this complete overstimulation as a mother.
Yeah, I was going to say, I actually lately have been helping my boyfriend's family at the concession stand in New Jersey. It's in the United States, and there is an exhaust fan when you cook.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I literally feel like I feel like I'm going to go crazy if that exhaust fan. And it was last weekend. It was so hot here in the United States and New Jersey. And I was like, that thing stayed on all day long
Oh my
because
Lord.
my boyfriend's dad had said, "Oh, it takes the hot air out." I'm like, "It's going to take my brain out of my head. I can't hear like the people like
Yeah.
ordering, but then also that and I'm like, "Oh my God, I just need to get out of here." Like it was just like this cringy feeling to the point that I was like just had to like disconnect because I was like I have to disconnect something because I feel like, being an Aquarius, my my superpower, which is, probably part of my trauma response, is disassociation. But sometimes I need to disassociate because if not, somebody's going to be getting,
Something else is going to just
yeah,
make you pop anyway, because if you don't
yeah,
take yourself out of that moment in time,
yeah.
it's just going
It's
to
like
get
I gotta,
worse.
yeah, yeah. So that is so funny, but yeah. Um, so thank you for explaining all the dragon energy. I truly feel like it's always been very, very transformative for me. Now that you explain all of that, I feel like people listening also will probably have some very similar experiences. Now, if you obviously, if somebody wants to work with dragon energy, they have to be, very in tune to it. But how about if somebody kind of is already in tune to it or wants to, like something personal, or like some of your clients obviously come work
Yeah.
with you. But if they just kind of want to do this on their own a little bit to kind of get that awareness,
To
so they're
bring
not
the
so,
awareness, yeah, to bring that awareness in, I always recommend, and this is a very simple path into things for people. I always recommend like playing around and finding what path works for you. So for some people, that's a guided meditation that they
okay.
know that they have worked with. Usually, I'm going to go back to the fire dragon example because I feel like even Reiki masters and all different types of healer have had a fire dragon show up in a session unexpectedly for them and their client. And that's usually the first, like, oh, I knew there was fire dragon, but I didn't know there was all these other ones. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, that's just the tip of the iceberg, my friend. It's like literally just the tip. You haven't even opened up to the world, to the galactic dragons yet. And it's so much fun when you do. But literally working with a meditation, working on that guided meditation, and choosing a topic that you know that you want to work on. For something, one of the guided meditations I do is healing the self-worth wound. Now, that is something that shows up for so many people. They lack confidence, they have had trauma in past lives in this lifetime, and it's showing up in different threads, different patterns, all of these things. So working on something like that, that gives you the experience of healing energy, that gives you that structure of the guided meditation. For some other people, it's working with a deck that makes their heart sing. So for me, I'm recommending a deck for someone that is just beginning and that they're just wanting to get that reassurance of dragon energy, because you've got to remember a lot of people out there are still battling their fear of dragons and what that means to them in the terms of the religion that they were born into. And they've got like, oh, dragons can be manipulative, dragons can be seen as potentially evil, they're mischievous. Nothing could be farther from the truth. Just absolutely nothing. These are all masters, masters at light beings, healers, emotional support, your biggest cheerleading team. And for people that want to work on a one-to-one level and really understand their dragon teams, then you can go down the route of dragon mentoring. You can go down the route of learning about your team, or jumping in and doing something like a laser focus healing session, which is something I do with my clients. It really opens up that world of expansion. But Universal Dragon is a deck that I like for absolute beginners. It doesn't
Mhm.
allow you to dive deep as in to find out what your personal dragon is, but it allows you a good, solid introduction to the dragon community's voice and see that encouragement, that nourishing energy that the dragon community as large will project onto you and for you and really uplift you, because I think people get this energy from dragons at times. It's like, oh, they're going to knock me back. They're going to tell me things I don't want to hear. They're going to bring all this trauma. They might bring up some trauma because you're ready to release it, but they're not going to make you relive it. They're not going to reactivate it in you. That
Yes.
has no purpose.
Yeah. I was gonna say I definitely say that too with my clients too, with when we heal different types of trauma with whatever toolkit, whatever, if it's
Yeah.
during like a shamanic practice, if it's whatever it is during like a healing session, that people are so resistant to that trauma or looking at that trauma. And I'm like, here's the thing: you have to look at it. You don't have to relive it. There's ways and
Yes.
tools that I use to like not relive it, if it's their spirit team, their whoever comes through, whatever that is for them. But I'm really super excited now. I'm like, oh, now I feel like I can work with the dragons. Now understanding why they, during my own shamanic journey this year, that they did come in and it was that fire element, and that was like, really powerful with my own healing through my own journey, because I'm like, that's interesting, there's a dragon here.
Yeah, I love.
But it makes sense now. Like now that I hear you talk and we've been talking, I'm like, oh my goodness, it's like a full circle of like they were here. They were probably here the whole time. I just wasn't aware of it. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And it's something that I love working with other healers on, because a lot of my clients are healers or holistic practitioners in their own rights and
Yeah.
across the whole spectrum of talents. So I love that.
Yeah.
But one of the things that they will often come away with is they never realized how much the dragons could do, all the different ways to work with them. They never understood that they could help on the business side of things. They could help focus on healing money trauma. They
Yeah.
could make them look at the sexual trauma, the inner child healing. The spectrum of what the dragons can do is so immense that I think for a lot of people, you're only seeing a minute fraction. Some people go off and focus just on dragon healing codes. Some people go off and focus and to teach the spectrum of the dragons. And then you get people like me, and for me with the dragons, they take me on these journeys. I drift away from working with the dragons at times because they need me to tighten up a connection with one of their allies of kitsune energy, or fey energy, mermaid energy, and they'll take me and show me
Yeah.
connections to Avalon and how they worked in Avalon, how the dragon fae existed there, and all of this in between. So it gets really exciting. So people will often come to say, oh, it's like, oh, I used to work with the dragons, then I drifted away, but now I feel I'm being pulled back. And I was like, yes, because that's where you're meant to be right now. You're meant to come back because you still have more to learn. But you had to go away to learn other skills before it would make sense to you for this next chapter. And that's something I
Yeah.
always get super excited about.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you know, like I've always been very, very connected with the mermaids, but I feel like lately I haven't been too connected with them, which is fine. Like I do, like you said, I understand this, and I feel more called probably since March to work more with the dragon like
Yeah.
energy, like, and it because it's been coming up in different areas. Obviously the mermaids always kind of come up everywhere, just because I feel like that's, you know, I am a mermaid.
Yeah.
Just in the physical body, just I don't look like one.
I literally have at least 3 clients I'm working with right now. All of them describe themselves as landlocked mermaids. That's a term they all use. They are landlocked, but as soon as they go to the ocean, as soon as they get to that beach, the loch, the lake, wherever it is, it's just like, it's just like that internal breath, full body lock relaxation. And I love because you have underwater dragons, you have a mermaid cave journeys to go on and learn about the crystal caves with them. And yet we also have flashbacks of visions from Atlantis, Lemurian days, where you have the dragon fae and the water nymphs intertwining with the dragon energy itself. So much you can hardly tell the difference. And it opens up another doorway of magic healing because water itself is such a healing substance for our natural bodies when we work with light code energy in our waters and when we work with crystal energy as well on the safe crystals. I know we've got toxic crystals, but I'm going to say on the safe crystals with all these beautiful crystal bottles out there, just don't try and do this at home kind of thing. It's
Right.
like
Yes. Yeah.
um you can get these dragons to infuse it. You can get the mermaid to then add their own healing touch to these scenarios. And both of them amazing at emotional healing, both of them amazing at manifestation, amazing at loyalty, creativity, and nourishment, all of it. They're all powerful healers too. So when you meet any of the dragons or their allies, and I do classify the mermaids as one of their strong allies as well, you will often find these characteristics that are existing in all of them. It's like their own set of values. But
Right.
the way they approach these topics, the way they deal with these topics, is something that is completely unique to them in that race of beings.
Right. And I love that you say that. And I feel like that's just like, you know, in this 3D physical world, it's the same thing. It's the same thing when people are like about religion and whatever. And I don't really talk about religion on the podcast, but I always just believe you believe what you believe. And I feel like just because if you're Christian, you have a set of beliefs that you all believe. If you're
Yes.
Catholic, you do the like each and even like the different races, everybody, we're all the same. Like, and I feel
Yes.
like even with dragons, mermaids, you know, whoever, you know, you
Mhm.
believe in, they're all the same. They just have a different like agenda. It's a different belief
Yes.
system. It's but we're all one. And I always when I try to like explain that to somebody when they're like, well, I'm different than this person. I'm like, no, you're not. You might
No.
look different. Who cares? Like you're not different than that person. You just have a different set of values. And most of the time it's limiting beliefs. So it's like, okay, so is that a limiting
Yes.
belief or is that actually like a value that you're going to live by? And most of the time, right, it's a limiting belief or it was something that was placed upon us from when
Yeah.
we were kids or generational or something with, you know,
Yeah.
society too. Yeah.
And that's the thing with the dragons is they are so good at helping us untangle the social
Yeah.
conditioning that we have grown up with, we have been through. And like I said before, I love the fact that we get to work along the ancestral timelines. I love the fact we get to long and clear out records and clear out the karmic cycles. They have the tools to do all of this. Like many other beings have the tools, but this is a way for a lot of people to connect and for it to make sense. Because when I'm in a session, if I'm working with someone, as I said to you at the beginning with my daughter calling in the royal blue dragons, some dragons act as clans. They're not going to show up as just one individual dragon. The higher up you get with the dimensional dragons, they become 1, 2 dragons. But at the lower end, the 4D, the 5D, they will often show up as dragon clans, which is why when I say to people, everyone's got their own dragon team, just in the same way everyone has their own spirit guide team or their own
Right.
angel,
Yeah.
the dragons will literally show up in teams of 6 to 28. And then some people have reported high as dragon teams of 38. But for me, I've seen about 28 is the biggest one. And this is
Okay.
because of them are working in clans, some of them are working solo, some of them are interchanging out with their partners. You see this a lot with Silver Luna and Golden Solar Dragons. Because they have this divine masculine, divine feminine interchange of energy. You need to be in action mode. Okay, Golden Solar's in today. You need to be in creation mode. Okay, so this is Silver Luna's day to shine. And we see that. We feel the energy shift. It's the same way that we feel the energy shift with moon cycles, with the rising of the tides, with the sun in different positions in the sky. We literally have Pegasus energy that is related to the sun, moon, and eclipse seasons. So when we tap into that energy and tap into thunder energy as well with the Pegasus, you're bringing in this massive, intense, strong change of energy. And it's the same way the dragons show up. They will come in strong. But usually I am always amazed when people say this. Oh no, I should always say I'm not amazed when people say this. Is literally like, oh my God, as soon as you started running energy, I felt the dragons come in. And it was like I was being pulled back in my chair and having this enormous hug. And I was like, yes, it's a strong energy. You recognize the energy right away when it starts to work, but you don't ever feel scared. It's not a scary experience. I literally had a lady in doing an under cave shamanic journey, and I was kind of a little bit reluctant because she was still quite new to the dragons to do this journey. And I was like, okay, I would usually say this is for someone a bit more intermediate. They've had multiple experiences with dragons and moving on from beginner stuff to the next stage. And I said, but your dragons are keen for you to do this, so let's do it. But if you feel uncomfortable at any stage, let me know. So I put her in the circle in this underground cave. We had the dragons coming out of the cave. We had 3 big dragons. And right away, she went very quiet. I was like, okay. And I could see in my vision this third dragon from the center cave coming up and getting really in her face, like sniffing at her and reaching out to touch her. And she was like, oh, oh. And I was like, okay, if that dragon's intimidating you, we're going to ask it to step back. And it has to respond to your boundaries. You don't need to respond to its. And the dragon's like, but I'm just being, I was like, I know you're being friendly, but you're scaring the crap out of this lady, so you need to back up a little bit. Okay, this is
It's
just
funny.
like,
I'm like getting like chills this whole time
yeah.
that you're talking.
The dragon was like, but I'm greeting a long lost friend. I was like, yes, but we need to dial it back. I said,
Yeah,
it's not, I'm not separating you two unless they need me to, but I'm saying we need to pull it back and pull the excitement and the intensity. And instantly the dragon did that. It wasn't an issue moving forward. I just gave her a moment in the session. I was like, okay. And I pulled one of the other dragons in first, and then this dragon came back in at the end. And the energy was just like, can I speak now? I was like, yes, you can speak now. No one was telling you to shut up in the first place. We just said you had to dial it back a bit. And that just reminds me of our children at times, like, can I speak now? Can I express my opinion now? And it's like, yes, you can. And it gets me thinking back to that social conditioning point and how many women healers, light workers, we all have that throat chakra block. So many of us, until we break through it and just, pardon my language for a second, but basically say, heck yeah, I'm doing this come hell or high water,
yeah,
and you're not going to stop me. But it takes a long time to get into that mindset. It takes a
yeah,
longer time to just ride it out and just fully commit to it.
yeah,
Once we break through that conditioning belief and we break through those moments of tension and we see that we can do it with ease, grace, the fear just vanishes. And it's so
yeah,
beautiful to watch a moment like that, that if you have someone that doesn't really know what they're doing or is completely shocked by the situation, it could have left a scar. And yet the way that we asked the dragon to step back, the way that we approached it, because I always say, any being you're working with, if you treat them with respect, you're going to get respect back. If you go
right.
in and make demands of, you will help me, you will do this, we will make this change. Oof, nope, let's not go there. Because you're going to see even more obstacles, even more awkward things, slowing the process down because you didn't do the work and you didn't listen to the advice.
Yeah. I was gonna say, it sounds like, not that I would like, if there's only a couple times that the dragons did come to me like in my dreams and through the shamanic journey, but that sounds like me during like probably this past eclipse season. I was very demanding with the universe, like, you're gonna do this. And then it's like, no, you're the one that's doing this. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm doing this. And it's like constant back and forth. I'm like, fine. So
Yeah,
fine.
it's until they wear you down. It's until they wear you down at times.
Like
And it's like,
then
no, we're
your money
trying to
gets messed
tell
up.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And like then it's like, oh, you're then I start to, they and it's always for me, I don't know if it is for anybody else listening or for you, but they always like to mess with my money. So it's like, because that's the only way that I feel like I listen. So I've stopped doing that. When I immediately know that I need to change something, I'm going to resist it. It's just my human nature. It's my human side that needs the help, not my soul side. But like my human side is like, no, 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 we've gone through so much change, or maybe it's my wounding coming up that's speaking. It's like, you've already
yeah,
changed a lot. You don't need to change anymore. It's like, but I do. Like, we do need
yeah,
to do this, so it's constant. It's like, I always tell people that it's like, it's constant battle. It's just between me and me. Like, it's just me. Like,
yeah.
that's the only person. And I seen this meme the other day that, it was like those funny memes on Instagram that it was like the universe like asking why you're resisting something or something like that, or why I'm not changing something. And it's like, you're blocking it. You're the
Yeah.
one that's blocking it.
We
And
need to
until
get
I
out of our own
realized
way.
it's me, yeah,
We
then
need to get out of our own way more often than not. We need to address these things. I was literally saying to a client the other day, we all go through this period of contraction before we make that next leap into expansion. Whether it shows up as money, health issues, or just things not going our way. And you cannot expand if you're holding fury in your body. If you're holding
yes,
on to that anger, that fury, that frustration of life, like, why them? Why not me? This, I should be here. And I did a call recently with the dragons and my student membership recently called the shoulda woulda call, and it was blasting through all these beliefs of we should be further along in our lives, we should have this level of income, and changing it up and changing the dynamic of it. A lot of it comes from wounding, but not all of it. Sometimes it's collective energy, sometimes it's a lesson that we need to look at,
yeah,
but in all cases, and it doesn't matter what level you're at in your journey, what development you've done, there's always this moment of contraction before massive expansion.
right.
Always.
And it can't always be, and I always tell my clients too, like, it can't always be like, I just I'm getting ready to start a Voxer membership, and right now I'm recording, so this will be out past,
Yeah.
we'll already be into it. But because some of my clients, I kept hearing them say that like I'm attracting people that don't want to pay me. And I know last year or a year and a half ago, I think from now, I know for me, I learned that the only two things suck. The only two things. There's other things that you could keep you stuck in your business, but the two main things is an emotional block or it's a money block. And I said, I've gone through a lot of money trauma, but I feel like it still comes up. It's still there. I still got to remind it. I get this reminder of like, okay, it's not keeping me stuck, like not like speaking it, charging, whatever. But she said, oh, I need to charge my worth. And I said, stop saying that. Stop saying that you want to charge your worth. You'll never be able to charge what you actually are truly worth, right? Nobody can afford that in this 3D world. So it's like I always tell her, or I said, stop saying that, because you could feel like you're worth 10, if it's a one-on-one
Yeah.
coaching program, $10,000. But are you going to have somebody that can, pay that? Do you have somebody that can pay that? That type of thing. Did you just start? Where are you in your journey? If you are a new coach, no, you can't go from zero to I don't care what you see online. Nobody can go from zero to $10,000. There's a process to get there, right? Like, just with everything. So I was like, I felt very called to, I'm like, you know what? I feel like people need more of my support that can't jump on one-on-one calls all the time. So I'm like, I'm going to do a Voxer support that you have me in your pocket. And it really, and I second guessed myself. I'm going to be completely honest. I was like, nobody's going to want this, but I'm just going to create it and see if it works, if it doesn't. And all of a sudden, as soon as I said that, it's like, but now you just doubted yourself. So that I kind of took that out of it and I just posted about it, instantly filled 2 spots. And I was like, oh, okay. So that's just my clarification that this is what's needed. And I always tell people, and I'm very transparent with my own clients and my own network, that I have these moments that I feel doubt. There's moments that I feel like, you know, that scarcity mindset comes back in. But it's so much easier, especially with tools, and I'm sure with like the dragons, it's so much easier to switch it. It's like, stop thinking that way. You're not that person. Like, that person before. Because I feel like so many people, when I say, like, do you have clients? Is your business making consistent 5, 10K months? Like, why isn't it? What's the reason? They can't answer that because they don't even know. So,
No, and it shows up for us all in different ways. I
yeah.
mean, it can be not even our own fears. We'll keep going back to this generational trauma, but it's
Mhm.
not even if our family's seen someone that's self-employed or been an entrepreneur and it didn't take off and it didn't work out the
Yeah.
way and they saw it was a hard journey, they instantly hold that in their body, that fear, that panic, that anxiety of, oh, I could never do that. I could never make that leap. And I don't want my family to make that leap either. I want them safe. And so many of our fears has come from this place of other people not seeing us as secure, us not feeling secure in our own bodies. We literally, you'll hear healers speak about witch wounds, prostitution wounds. You will hear people. And I did a series last year. There was a group healing calls of 3 different calls. One was on magical leaders. One was on the light workers wound, which we had to release the guilt, the shame of people that we couldn't physically help, the guilt and shame that a lot of healers hold on to for asking for money in this lifetime for their services. And yet there's no way you can physically do that in this lifetime. It doesn't
Right.
matter if you are charging, $7, or if you are charging into the 10, 20,000 mark. Everyone, there's a lot of healers that want to make it accessible, and there's a lot of healers that just want the high-end clients. They don't want to work with everyone and anyone. They want just exclusive amount, top-tier clients, and that's how they are. For myself, I have my set prices, and it always goes on with how much energy is it going to cost me to hold that session, to hold that space.
That's how I
It's
charge.
it's just literally how I work. But when I generally meet nice people that I've just booked in for a Let's Talk call, and I can see they're eager, they're hungry to work for me, I always have lower priced options that I can offer them. But if they're honestly not even at that stage in the space to jump on, invest, and this is because I've been in these spaces, so I never hold it against people. It's like I've been in those bargain modes. You need to bargain, you need to do things. We all start at that mode and we evolve past it. So for me, I always say, okay, you know what? Here's the thing. I run pay it forward events twice a year. They're a big 4-day flash sale of usually 80 to 90% off of a lot of packages that I offer. It's just a small selection, but it's just a lot. If you want, I can put you into that group for free. So the next event, you can see what works and you can get something that's really high end that matches your needs in that moment and is not
Yeah.
going to break down and is not going to feel scary to invest in. Because if the number's too high for a lot of healers, a lot of white light workers, and unless you're committed to taking out that loan or remortgaging the house or
Yeah.
whatever it is,
Yeah.
it's terrifying. A lot of practitioners will offer payment plans, but even I've met healers that are just like, oh no, I'm not doing that. I've been burnt too many times. I've seen too much hassle. I don't want that, invite that energy into my life. And yeah, I think in the way the global economy is just now, we need
Yeah.
to step back into some of that energy to make it easier. Because if people are living in a fearful place all the time, they're not going to invest in themselves. They're not going to take that next step of healing. So we need to find that balance again and make it easy, pleasant, and fun for people.
Yeah. I love that. And I feel like I feel very aligned with that too, because I've been in all of those spaces. So when people immediately tell me, because when they're like, I want to work with you, but it's
Mhm.
always, I don't know if I can
That
afford
but.
it. Yes. And I'm like, so then I get curious, like, and, I'll get curious on why. Because I just feel why. I know it's, they just always say that. So I tell them, and I always say that I don't want money to be the reason why you can't heal, because I give tons of free content, like
Yeah.
all of my content that I make and all my, stuff that like my YouTube, all, all my also like on my like the podcast, all the things. Like there's always something that somebody could take from listening to something and use it. And that just one thing could be the reason that they or one that they change their life. You know what I mean? So it's not like, but of course, like you said, if it's one-on-one with me, obviously if it's a lot of energy that I'm putting into it, that's what I'm going to be charging. And or if it's like a membership, that's what I'm going to be charging. Or if it's a group program, that's what, and obviously, and I personally, me being a projector, like for human design, I love working one-on-one with people, but I also love being in a group setting with other people because I don't hold the wisdom of the universe. So I like to hear everybody else's perspective because I also learn from them too. So yeah, I definitely can resonate with, I always say, and I will say this till I'm blue in the face, like I don't want money to be the reason why somebody can't heal. Because
Yes.
I remember there's times that I didn't have a dime to invest in myself. And there's a couple people and they still are in my life, in my like in my orbit that literally have helped so much. And I just feel like to give that back to other people, not necessarily
Yes.
them, but give
Yeah.
it to other people. I feel like I'm definitely in integrity. Now there's
Yes.
some people, then
100%.
there's an other spectrum of people that they have the money and they have the money, but they're just that like, I'm just going to pull everything out or try to pull, that's when boundaries come
Yeah.
in. I'm going to try to pull everything and like suck her energy dry, and most intuitives, they know what they know. And it's just like, look, this is what my price is. And, and here's the thing too, I've learned this over the last year. If people want to do it, they're going to do it and they're going to figure out a way. And literally the universe tells me that all the time. They will figure out a way. Don't worry about it. And then I usually see like 777 or 888 or something like that for my clarification of like that it's going to happen. It just might not happen right now,
And I think we can see this on the other flip side of it as well.
Yeah.
We can be working with someone and we've worked with an individual for a long time, they're a regular client, whatever. And then all of a sudden one day they decide that they don't need your services anymore. And that comes a natural ending for some people. And other times
Yeah.
it can come out of a place of temper or something. They don't like what they're hearing. And it's like,
Right.
well, the message can't be
Yeah.
changed. And it's not even the delivery at times. It's literally just where you've triggered that individual. So they need to go away and cool off. I've seen so many people like, oh, I lost this client. I'm really sad. And I was like, but did you not get a message the next day from 2 new clients? Well, yeah, I did, but I didn't think of it that way. I was like, you've had
Yeah.
2 new inquiries. You literally
Yes.
lost one and attracted more aligned people with you in your message in the same day. And that happens so frequently, and people don't see it right away. And then it's like, oh, yes, that did happen. So you just
Mhm.
relax. If
Yeah.
you relax, but when it comes to money, when it comes to finances and health, people get jumpy for completely understandably, people get jumpy. It's like, this is the real world we live in. This is how we operate. We need to
Reality.
see, yes, it's reality. But we're always
Yeah.
changing our reality. And that's the nice thing about the dragons and all of the elemental beings I work with. We're constant in evolving mode. We're constantly transforming, constantly expanding. The choices you make today will affect tomorrow, but they're not going to affect what's happening in 6 months' time because you have a million choices to make and choose from each and every day.
Yes. Thank you so much for all of your wisdom. And can you please tell the listeners where they can connect with you? I also will make sure all your links are in the description box if they're watching this on YouTube or listening on any of the major platforms. But how can people, if they want to work with you, have a session with you, maybe learn more about how they can use the dragon energy, where can they find you?
So you can basically find me on most social media channels from, well, not so much YouTube, but from TikTok to Facebook to Instagram to Clapper and Threads. If you look for the intuitive listener, you're going to find me quite quickly. You'll see that I'm sharing weekly and daily content from miniature micro dragon healings to give you a taste of that, to give you a taste of weekly collective and weekend card pulls, to give you some fun dragon factoids that you can make it easy and experiment and see if this energy is working for you. If you like all that and you see all that, then jump on for a Let's Talk call with me. And again, this is something you can find my bio links on every platform. Let's talk. And this is just a great, fun little session for me and you to connect. But I also get the chance to run 4 different types of energies on you. So you can see and feel how it's affecting your body in that moment. So we'll just do something very gentle, like a chakra cleanse, removing pain from the body, and just play around. This is like a 20-minute appointment. So it's only 20 minutes of your day. And we see where you feel most comfortable at investing, because I have the whole spectrum of very lightweight offerings that are not going to break the bank. If you can afford 2 Starbucks a month, you can afford these. And literally, you can jump in at the higher value stuff as well. I always recommend after the Let's Talk, and you want to play around with Dragon Energy more. I have a little package called the First Flight with the Dragons package, and it's available all year round. And literally, it's a 30-minute dragon laser focus session, healing session, and a dragon's let the dragon speak call as well, which is a dragon reading, working with the collective of dragon voices. And then if you choose to go on further, then we can talk about mentoring and other options at that stage to play around with your own personal dragon teams as well.
I love that. I'm excited for our session.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on today's episode with Victoria on the Enlightened Misfits podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share with somebody that you feel that would gain knowledge from listening to this episode today. So stay tuned for more captivating conversations in the future. I hope you have an amazing rest of your week, and I will see you next time.